Didn't get to spend as much time as I wanted to preparing for this speech, but I did practice what I'm going to be talking about while I was doing some traveling, and I got to drink a lot of wine. You go to these meetings, and afterwards you need a way to de-wind, and wine is my way to de-wind. So I'm going to be talking to you about wine, but I don't want to talk because there's so much to wine, and there's just so many different ways you can take it. And it's a fairly recent passion of mine. But what I've really gotten into is the aging of wine. What I don't want to do in this class is what I'm struggling with is going back to chemistry class in high school, and I'm having the same views of chemistry as I did back then, where I'm just confused and staring instead of, at the time, my teacher, and now I'm staring at Google going, what the heck are these people talking about? I have no idea about all these complex chemicals that are going on in wine. Right? Because wine is a living thing. It changes day to day, month to month, depending where it's made, when it's made, how it's made. So all these factors go into making what each producer likes to think is the most perfect wine. Then you throw in the idea of aging. And everyone, I'm sure, has heard the age-old saying, aged like a fine wine. The older the wine, the better. Now, I've been lucky enough to taste some wines that are pretty old. I've tasted wines that are fresh out of the barrel, and I've tasted wines that are 30, 40 years old. And there's a very big difference in that quality, that taste. But I've come to realize that as I'm tasting these wines with my friends, the beauty of the wine is in the eye of the beholder. Because what wine I like and what wine Jane likes or Tim likes is going to be completely different than every other person in that room. So let's start with the beginning. How do you age wine? When producers develop wine, they do so by picking the grape at the most perfect time. Then they go through their process of holding it for an X amount of years, bottling it, and then once bottled, they will also hold it in the bottle an X amount of years before they deliver it to the store. Now, most wines should be drank 1 to 5 years after the date of purchase. And I would say within the year is probably more likely, and that's probably how most people drink it. They don't wait till 5, 10, 15, 20. I actually read a stat that Americans are the country where wine aging is a fairly new thing because we're not patient. We want to buy our wine and we want to drink it today, which kind of works out because if you think about it, there's a lot of wine out there. So there's a lot of different tastes you can get and a lot of different experiences you can gain from that. Now, my general rule of thumb is any wine under $30 should not be aged because what's going on with those wines is the complexity. So the more complex of a wine you have, that's how you determine if it can truly be aged. So only I'd say about roughly 1% of wine that's currently produced can actually be aged, where it actually gets better as you continue to enjoy it down the road. Now, there's also types of wine. So rosé is like the new hot wine. Everyone's drinking rosé, especially in the summer. It's crisp, it's fruity, it's delicious, right? But you get it, and you go to the store and they have 2014s, 2015s, and you're going, I don't want this. This is so young. But that's how that wine should be drank. It's a fruity wine that should be drank. If you get a 2013 rosé, I would send it back or don't buy it because it's not going to have what a rosé is known for. Now, on the opposite end, you have wines that are great for aging. So in California, we're lucky enough to have Cabernet grown in Napa Valley. That is a very complex, great wine to age. Same thing with Bordeaux that are coming out of France, another great wine to age. So depending on if it's a red, a white, you want to take a look at who the producer is and where it's coming from. And then do your research, because without the proper research, you're not going to be able to truly understand when that wine should be drank. So let's say I buy a Cab that's 2014 from Napa Valley. Depending on the humidity up there for that year, not alone just by that producer period, but the humidity, the temperature when that grape was picked, it could last 10 years. And then I could pick up a 2012 that really I can hold for 20 years. So this kind of goes back to my original thought of back to chemistry class, because there's just so much going on that it's very difficult to be able to age it properly at your house. The other thing is a lot of people will get their wine and they'll put it in their wine rack and they'll put it in their kitchen and they'll say, oh, this is awesome, this looks really cool, plus it's in the kitchen and wine is associated with the kitchen and the dining room. Well, in the kitchen it gets very, very hot. So to properly age wine, you really have to control 4 things. You have to keep it very dark, away from the sun. You have to have the temperature be 55 degrees or lower depending on how you want to age it. It has to be very dry, and you have to control vibrations. So, kitchen might be okay for vibrations, but you're going to get temperatures that fluctuate. It's not going to be very dry because you're going to have humidity that comes in based on what you're cooking, and it's not going to be very, very dark. So, the biggest thing I would say you can get out of this speech is if you're into aging wine, do your research, and you will discover the more research you do, the more you're going to realize how complex and difficult it is. But my biggest advice would be, first and foremost, buy yourself a wine fridge. And buy a wine fridge that is bigger than what you think you'll need, because you will eventually fill it up because it does get addicting. And finally, I would like to say that this weekend I am hopefully looking forward to a 95 Nebulo that I'm going to pop open. So it's going to be a 20-year bottle of wine that I'm going to be drinking.
Wow.
So hopefully it will be good. I'll give the recap at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.